What is up, guys? Zaid here, and today I got for you a Dueling Book rated match that I just played. My ranking is still a little low, and so is my opponent's because of that, because the format just reset recently, a couple days ago, as you all know, because of the ban list. And this is one of my first games in ranked, and it was a pretty fun match, so I figured I would record it and talk about it. I won the die roll, and I elected to let him go first because I'm playing going second striker. He opened up Desires, Gizmek, Called by the Grave, Danger Thunderbird, and a Kaiju. And so he's playing the, what's it called, Gren Maju deck. I'm playing going second striker. He uses his Desires, and he gets it met with an Ash. But he had the Called by, so he gets to resolve his draw. But as you could kind of tell that he's playing a going second build also, so winning the die roll was actually really good for me. It let me not only... I basically got to go first with 6 cards because he didn't really do anything on his first turn. And so I terraforming for my field spell, set the Shark Cannon. I think here this maybe was a misplay. I'm not sure. Given what he's playing, it was, but I don't know in the grand scheme of things if it was. I could have set the Harpy's Feather Duster instead. And then I would have still had the Shark Cannon, which is a lot more valuable against Gren Maju than this card is, than the Harpy's Feather Duster. But anyways, I did what I did. I got a Ray off of it, which was insane. As you can see in the chat, I was pretty excited about drawing Ray. And so I just summon Ray, hit, Ray effect. Oh, he uses, I almost forgot, he uses this Gizmek, which banishes 8 to summon itself from hand or graveyard. Card's pretty good. I didn't mean to click attack. I had said Ray effect, summon Hayate. And so Hayate swings in, sends Widow Anchor. This was actually something that I used to, for the first couple games I played with this deck, I would usually just send Engage, but I kind of learned this from the DB Grinder. He was talking about it in a replay he was watching, where he felt like it was more optimal to send not Engage. Because, like right here, if I would have sent Engage, added it back, I wouldn't have got the draw off of the Engage anyways. It would have just put Engage in Grave. So instead, I got to send the Widow Anchor, then add the Widow Anchor back, and I'll be able to then set it, and on the end phase with Shizuku, I can get Engage. And now the next turn, I'll be able to resolve Engage for a draw twice. Which is, I feel like that does put you in a lot better of a spot, in this specific scenario at least, and it does come up often, where it feels like I'm in a better spot because of it. So I get to add the Engage, and I have a Widow Anchor and the Feather Duster set, which he activates the Thunderbird. This ended up, if I didn't set the Harpy's Feather Duster, the duel could have literally just ended here. If the Duster would have been the Shark Cannon, like I was saying I misplayed earlier, I don't think it would have changed anything in this instance, actually. But, so he uses Thunderbird. I pick which danger is going to get discarded. And I picked the Thunderbird, but he missed my Widow Anchor. And so the reason that saved me is because if he would have hit the Widow Anchor, I just die here because this Gren Maju is at 7,200 attack. Like, this thing is fucking beefy right now because he has 18 banish. And so when he hit over me, I took 5k. And what did he do to out my Ray? I don't remember. Oh yeah, he Kaiju'd me. He Kaiju'd my Shizuku, so Ray didn't get to float. So here I'm down to 3k. He's got 2 attacks, but I was able to Widow Anchor one of his guys, which acted as a battle fader kind of. Like, I took his guy, he couldn't climb it with the other guy, and I got to live to see another day, which all I need is one day, and I get to fuck him up. So then he summons another Kaiju, overlays with his other level 8 to make Hope Harbinger, which is just a spell negate. This card, like, would be good if my hand wasn't insane. So I just play Mystic Mine. He's forced to negate it. If not, he loses his negate and Mystic Mine stays up. Then I put down the multi-roll, play the Engage. Engage is, like, nice as fuck. Here, I decide to grab the Area 0. And then I get the draw, and I get a Shark Cannon. Then we use multi-roll to pop the field spell to make so he can't respond to spells. Even though he doesn't have anything, it didn't really matter. It's just to summon the Ray out. Then Kagari get back Engage. But this is where it just gets crazy. You get to, because of how I did it last turn where I searched the Engage on the end phase, I get 2 Engage draws this turn. Which one of them was the Shark Cannon, the second's an Ash. And this is another spot where I misplayed. I think I should have just summoned Ash. Or actually, I probably should have linked away Kagari for Hayate for the down arrow, and then Widow Anchor took the Gren Maju, and then normal summoned Ash, and then I could have linked the Gren Maju and the Ash for Halki Fibrax, special out Veiler, then make the Celine go into access code Talker, and I would have had access code Kagari. I could have cleared his board and hit for game, but I didn't do that, and so let's see what I did do. Now I know for the future, though, so I won't fuck up. I made a Hita. Hita took the Gren Maju back again. This will make the Celine, and then I normaled the Ash here. Because when I got to this point, I was like, fuck, I misplayed or something. Yeah, I even told him, I think I played this poorly, LOL. And so then when I realized that, this was, I think, the best play I had at that moment. I also could have here used Shark Cannon to bring back one of his guys and also made an access code and kept the Ash in hand. But I felt like being able to set the Shark Cannon was going to be more valuable. Or, no, actually, now that I remember, the reason I kept it in hand was so that after I pop all his guys, he can't try to use Gizmek to come back. I could have stopped it with Skullmeister, but that leaves it in the grave. And I wanted to be able to Shark Cannon it to completely banish it and then still have Skullmeister for the next turn. Because this guy's deck, he had a lot of graveyard cards, it felt like. Or at least I was worried of them, so I wanted to keep my graveyard negates. And so, yeah, then I popped his board, hit in for 53. See, he's only at 12, so if I would have had the Hita, that would have been game. I then go end phase multi-roll set 3. And he opted not to use the Gizmek there. He wanted to keep it, I'm assuming, so that on his on his main phase, he could banish 3 from the extra to pop my access code. So that, I think, is why he decided not to block damage and instead tried to do it here. But I just Shark Cannon him. He tries telling me I can't. He thought that it was the one that I set off multi-roll when it was one that I kept in hand. And he scooped it up. So even though I didn't get to attack for game, I still got game on that turn, regardless of the misplay. No. You can't really see the siding. I wish it did let you see my side deck progress, because it is my replay. But I took out 2 of my my 2 copies of Tactical Talents and 1 Upstart and put in 3 Forbidden Droplets. My assumption was that he was going to make me go first, which ends up being correct. He does make me go first. And so I wanted to have a card that I could draw and set to stay alive if he opened like a Desires and a Gren Maju. I didn't want to just die that turn. And Widow Anchor's 1. Like, that keeps me alive. But having a 4th, 5th, and 6th Widow Anchor for that scenario is, in my mind, it would work. Let's see if I end up drawing it. And by that, I mean, I know I didn't draw it, so it didn't really matter, but that's what I sided in and out. He made me go first. I opened a Ray, Rose, Skullmeister, Ash, and multi-roll. And he opened a Gamma Seal, Danger Bigfoot, Dimensional Fissure, Gren Maju, and Called By. I think this is 2 games in a row he opened Called By, which, pretty good for him. That card is nice. So I summoned Ray, just made a Shizuku, and phase search. I technically could have played multi-roll and then use Shizuku to search Widow Anchor, Widow Anchored the Shizuku, and then use multi-roll to set the Widow Anchor. But then if I used the Widow Anchor on his turn, it would have gotten banished, so it didn't get me any spells engraved. And I also don't know what he's going to do, and I have 2 hand traps already. And I know his deck isn't like a turbo combo deck. Like, 2 hand traps should be enough to stop him, and if I die through that while still having Shizuku and the Ray to float, then I guess I deserve to die. That was what my mindset was, at least. And so I added the Engage so that next turn I have multi-roll Engage to do whatever in response to whatever board he decides to make. And then he drew Eater of Millions, which, that card scared me when I first saw it, because like that card seems pretty good against this deck in particular. Just banishing my links or attacking. Does Ray still proc, actually? Or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect. So yeah, Ray would still proc, but he called by my Ray. He summons an Eater of Millions, summons a Gren Maju, and activates a Dimensional Fissure. Which this card had me like sweating a little bit too. I thought it would be a bigger problem than it ended up being. And like, just in a grind where I can't float with Ray, it seems scary, but luckily this deck wasn't too grindy. And so then he went Bigfoot effect. I sniped the Bigfoot, and he Bigfoot pops my Shizuku. I was kind of sad. I didn't realize dangers worked even if they get banished. But once I read them, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Just something neat to know for the future. And then Gren Maju swings in for 24. The Eater of Millions swings in for 500. He passes. And the top deck Harpy's Feather Duster takes care of that Dimensional Fissure. I don't really know how I would have outed it otherwise. I was trying to think of a way to get 3 spells engraved so that when I got the whatever the red one is called that pops monsters, I forgot the name off the top of my head. But whenever I'd search that and pop a monster, I'd then also be able to pop the dimensional fissure. But luckily, I didn't even have to worry about how to get 3 engraved to do that, and I also got to put 1 engraved. So the Feather Duster was a really insane play. Here, I fucked up. I forgot to play the multi-roll first, and I was kicking myself for it in my head, but it didn't really end up being substantial at all. It was actually like negligible. Afterburners, that's what it's called. So I engage for Afterburners, play the multi-roll now, one turn, not one turn, but one action later than I should have. Then we Afterburners, pop the Eater of Millions, because I can't attack into that card, so I had to out it via a card effect. And then I'm going to summon Rose, go into Hayate, which is going to hit him for 15. There's also no way for me to attack over his Gren Maju right now, because it's at 2400, which is pretty big for Striker to deal with in the early game. If we play a nice long grind game, I might end up with like 10 spells engraved, and I could swing over at 24 with Kagari, but that shit is not happening on my second turn. So I used Hayate's effect. I believe I dumped Widow Anchor. Yeah. That way I have it to load up the multi-roll. And then I add Engage back, get Afterburners. I had 3 engraved, so I technically could have, like, instead of sending Widow Anchor, sent like a Shark Cannon, and then instead of searching Afterburners, search the Widow Anchor. Widow Anchor his guy, and then make a Zeke, and then make a Shizuku. And it would have done the exact same thing, except would have loaded me with that extra card engraved to set off of the multi-roll. But I think yeah, I didn't have one already. But I end up end phase Shizuku searching the quick play. So I still get it. But I drew Desires off of this. Here I was sweating a little bit on if I wanted to activate it or not. Just because if I banished both of the quick play that banishes one from their graveyard, I wouldn't be able to search it off Shizuku. Which, that's another instance, knowing I could have drawn Desires, it would have probably made it the better play to Hayate dump the card that banishes and then engage search Widow Anchor. Make the Zeke out the board. But, it worked out. I only banished one, and I got, what? Can I look at the banish? That's the card I was thinking of, Shark Cannon. I forgot its name again, too. But I only banished one of the 2 Shark Cannon, which worked out masterfully for me, and I drew a Widow Anchor off that, so my end board ended up being insane. I searched the Shark Cannon, play the Shark Cannon to banish the Gren Maju, and in case he plays like Monster Reborn or something, and then at the end phase I get to use the multi-roll to reset the Shark Cannon, the Widow Anchor, and the Afterburners. So this guy has 1 Gamma Seal in hand, and I've got 3 negates set and 2 negates in hand. So no matter what he does, this is like game over here. He activates Thunderbird. I snipe the Thunderbird again. Like, I'm sniping dangers left and right on this guy. And then he admitted defeat. Which, he technically could have kept playing, like, but I probably killed him next turn anyways. Oh, I most definitely did, now that I remember that I have a tuner in hand. But, kudos to this guy, Zuka. It was a fun game. His deck was kind of cool. I like the Gren Maju deck. It isn't the best deck, honestly, but I think it's cool at the start of formats when you don't know what everyone's going to be playing. It's like just a fun deck to play. But Sky Striker kind of just, it's too resilient to dying. Like, it's kind of hard to kill Striker in a turn, I feel like. They have a lot of negates and a lot of floating. And then they also snowball advantage so hard, where a deck like Gren Maju doesn't really snowball advantage, so they just have to kill you as quick as they can. So the longer the duel goes, the more in my favor it becomes. And he wasn't able to close me out in one turn on any of these games, so it just snowballed into my favor until I had 5 negates set. But yeah, this was a fun match. Thank you for watching. And let me know what decks you think I should try. I think I want to try Tri-Brigade next, but I'm also open to suggestions, because I just want to learn what more cards do. Alright, thank you. Like, sub, see ya.